Alien bases, humanoids, and the Book of the Dead. What do the Caspian Sea waters really hide? Mysteries on land, of course, arouse great interest, but much more mysterious are the enigmas lurking in the depths of the waters. After all, it's not easy to get there, and you need special equipment and skills in underwater archaeology. For many millennia, the Caspian Sea has been of great interest to scientists because there are still many questions that even researchers and experts find it difficult to answer. Caspian Sea in the Book of the Dead. It's believed that in the Tertiary period, several million years ago, one large sea reservoir lay on the site of the present Black Azov-Caspian Sea and possibly the Aral Seas. The Black Sea communicated with the Caspian Sea along the Manich Depression, north of the Caucasus. Subsequently, the pool was divided into parts when the land was uplifted. A wide bridge was formed between the Black and Caspian Seas. However, traces of the former connection have survived. In the Caspian, Black, and Aral Seas, there are organisms of a common origin and even the same species. Also in the Caspian and the Aral Seas, there are organisms that live only in the ocean. For example, the heart-shaped bivalve mollusk and seagrass. Biologists have calculated that a third of the Caspian organisms are characteristic of both the Black Sea and Azov Seas. The Aral Sea, according to biologists, is the easternmost region of penetration of marine organisms to the west. Seals, whitefish, and sea cockroaches living in the northern seas are still preserved in the Caspian Sea. How the Aral Sea was connected with the Caspian and when it separated from it's difficult to say now, but the fact is that it was connected to the more western seas is beyond doubt. Thus, all these bodies of water are regulated by the remains of an ancient, very large sea. But probably one of the interesting points related to the history of the Caspian is that it's mentioned in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. In ancient Egypt, the so-called Book of the Dead was placed in the grave of the deceased, a small text in which it was noted where, according to the Egyptians, the soul of a person leaves after death. The end of the journey, quote-unquote, of the soul was the distant eastern sea, according to scientists. This is how the Egyptians called the Caspian Sea. Why the Egyptians believed that the soul of the deceased went to the Caspian Sea remains a mystery. Are there icebergs in the Caspian, and what makes the waters so cold in the summer? There are no icebergs in the Caspian, but despite this, in the winter of 1954, a catastrophe happened there due to a sharp cold snap. Ice blocks broke off and fell on ships and overpasses. One of the fishing boats capsized, and the entire crew was drowned. Another anomalous feature of the Caspian Sea is that in June the water temperature begins to rise, but then it drops sharply. Even fog appears around. At this time the sea begins to bloom, filling with algae. And what is the reason for this phenomenon? They don't know. This phenomenon is often observed on the eastern coast of the Middle Caspian. When a steady east wind blows, all surface water goes far from the sea border and instead becomes colder. During this process in summer, especially in August and July, temperatures on the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea are so low that even swimming is impossible. Sometimes, depending on the synoptic conditions and wind regime, these processes also occur in the western part of the sea. The next phenomenon in the Caspian is that the water level changes regularly. It rises and then falls. The last rise took place in 1978 to 1995, when the water rose by more than 2 meters, and in 1996 to 2021 it fell by 1.5 meters. This happens because the water level depends on climate changes and the indicators of the flow of the largest river feeding the Caspian, the Volga River. In other words, the level is determined by the ratio of water balance incoming and outgoing parts of the sea. There are no icebergs in the Caspian, but if a very cold winter occurs, then ice forms in the northern part, which moves towards the south. In 1924, ice also formed in the southern part of the sea. This often happens in the 50s when there are particularly cold winters. In 2000 and also in 2011, thick ice formed at the mouth of the Atachai River. Now, what do the waters of the Caspian Sea hide? It's impossible to imagine how many shipwrecks occurred in the Caspian and how many treasures went to the bottom of that sea. Old-timers claim that a Cossack leader buried his treasures on the islands. The likelihood that many archaeological monuments have appeared under the sea is due to the fact that its level is subject to fluctuations, both for a relatively short duration of a few tens of years intersecular and for thousands of years or more with large amplitudes causing large transgressions and regressions of the sea. The monuments buried in the Caspian Sea are overgrown with legends, and there is no doubt that the seabed around the Changi-Mugan Island still conceals many secrets, hiding monuments of history and culture under the water. The iron knives found there were a commodity cargo, as evidenced by their quantity and packaging. These are small knives about 18 centimeters in size with a single-edged blade. Underwater archaeological expeditions organized in the 80s confirmed the fact that in addition to the Silk Road route, there was a sea trade route along the western coast of the Caspian Sea. As a result of these expeditions, a huge number of medieval and possibly earlier anchors were found underwater. The path ran through the mouth of the Volga, and it connected with the Don, which was visited by ships from the Black Sea, and all this rushed to Persia. At the time, the Changi-Mugan Island was a natural shelter from the Caspian storms. It resembles a horseshoe in shape and allows ships to hide from a strong storm. They say that the name of the island is associated with that same Cossack leader, Stenka Razin, who in 1669 defeated the Persian fleet led by Mehmed Khan. The Caspian is indeed fraught with many mysteries. The Caspian has a unique feature called the precession of the sea. Every few hundred years the sea grows shallow. In the Middle Ages it became so shallow that it was divided into two parts. On all ancient medieval maps, the Caspian Sea has two names, and everyone thinks that this one sea is called by two names, the Khazar Sea and the Hyrcanian Sea. But in reality, they were two different seas. There was a ridge separating the two seas as a result of shallowing. In the north, where the Volga flows, there was the Khazar-Caspian Sea, and in the south, where the Kura flows, there was the Hyrcanian Sea. Genghis Khan, with his army, literally walked along the ridge of the middle of the sea. This ridge still exists, and if the Caspian becomes shallow, it will be exposed. The second feature of the Caspian Sea is where billions of tons of cubic meters of water end up. There are underground cracks in the sea, huge underground tunnels that lead to the Aral Sea. As a result of the rise of the Caspian Sea, all the water of the Aral Sea flowed into the Caspian Sea, and now there is a reverse flow. The Caspian is shallowing and the Aral Sea is filling up. In addition, the Caspian Sea is fraught with mythical mysteries, and one of them is Square 28. When a person is sailing on a boat, the water abruptly begins to leave. The funnel is formed and the boat abruptly sits on the bottom. Unidentified flying objects are constantly flying out of Square 28. There are teachings, legends that there is a civilization underground. According to Egyptian mythology, the Caspian Sea is located at the very edge of the Ocean of Light. That is, beyond the Caspian there is the world of the dead, from where the sun is born. From one of its sides, the sun god emerges from the underground sea, into which the water of the Caspian flows, and on his boat sails towards the east. The proof of this is the images of those boats of the sun on the rocks of the surrounding national park. There's an underground kingdom under the Caspian Sea where the ancients live, and often is very clearly visible how luminous flying objects fly out from the Caspian Sea, namely from Square 28. What creatures live in the Caspian? Every year, dozens of people disappear into the Caspian and cannot find their traces. Their traces can't be found. And after a while, the waves carry ashore, sometimes disfigured beyond recognition bodies or parts of them. There are no sharks in the Caspian Sea, so what happens to these people? We do not know the exact answer, but some associate this with the legend that amphibious humanoid creatures allegedly live in the Caspian, which are called Runan Shah in Iran. Ufologists argue that between the Caspian and the Black Sea, people once lived who built underground cities that were found in the surrounding area. Some relic creatures can live in the Caspian Sea. Evidence of this is a strange skeleton found in the banks of the Araz River, 175 centimeters long, weighing about 6 kilograms. Alien bases. Caspian Sea is the base for space aliens. One of the latest UFO sightings over the Caspian Sea recorded in a video January 28, 2011. In 1997, a UFO was seen from a tugboat which fell into the sea, after which there was an explosion and a column of water rose. 10 years before this incident, in 1987, and near the Shelf 6 drilling rig, several eyewitnesses observed a UFO landing on the water, a classic flying saucer about 30 meters in diameter, it's about 100 feet, and with red lights around its perimeter. After landing, the UFO exploded, water samples were taken and an oily spot with a diameter about 2.5 kilometers was found. However, at the same time, a regional jet crashed. The plane is believed to have collided with the UFO. It's characteristic that neither in 1997 or 1987 the wreckage of a UFO as well as the wreckage of a jet was ever found. Perhaps someday a future generation will unravel the remaining secrets of this sea. In the meantime, it is receding, and who knows what surprises await scientists who will research there. This is on Solask. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box